Ma'am, step away from the vehicle, now.
This is my car, I just unlocked it.
We got a suspicious activity call. Hands where I can see them. Back up.
Suspicious how? What's the legal basis to detain me?
Don't argue. Turn around.
It was 4:18 p.m. when the voice cut through the parking lot noise. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. Now. The woman froze with one hand still on the driver's door handle. The metallic click of the unlock had just echoed from the black sedan. Engines idled nearby. Shopping carts rattled. A hot wind carried the smell of asphalt and fast food grease across the concrete. "Excuse me," she said calmly, turning her head but keeping her body still. "This is my car." The officer stood 3 meters away, one hand resting on his belt, the other raised slightly as if ready to grab. His tone was sharp rehearsed. "I said step away from the vehicle. We've had a report of suspicious activity." Suspicious, how the woman asked. Her voice did not rise. She did not argue. She simply asked the question and waited. "You were observed attempting to access a vehicle that doesn't belong to you," the officer replied. "Step back, hands where I can see them." Around them, the late afternoon crowd moved in slow arcs. A couple loading groceries paused. A teenager leaned against a pickup truck phone already lifted halfway instinctively recording. Somewhere, a car alarm chirped and went silent again. The woman removed her hand from the door handle slowly and held it open, palm visible. "I unlocked it with my key," she said. "You can see it in my hand." "That doesn't matter right now," the officer snapped. "What matters is compliance." She exhaled, once controlled. "Officer, I am complying. I'm asking what legal basis you have to detain me." The word legal seemed to hang in the air longer than it should have. The officer's jaw tightened. He glanced around. People were watching now. A small half-circle had formed without anyone meaning to form it. "You're being detained pending investigation," he said. "Turn around." Investigation of what, she asked. "Unlocking my own car in a public parking lot." Her tone was not defiant. It was precise, almost instructional. The officer took a step closer. "You're making this difficult." "No," she replied. "I'm making this clear." A woman near a shopping cart whispered, "This is crazy." Another voice muttered, "Why is he doing that?" The officer heard it. His shoulders stiffened. He was no longer just dealing with the woman. He was dealing with eyes, cameras, judgment. "Ma'am, last warning," he said. "Turn around or you will be placed in handcuffs." The woman looked at him directly for the first time. Her expression was steady, unreadable. "If you choose to arrest me," she said, "please understand that everything happening right now is being recorded." The officer hesitated for half a second, just long enough for the crowd to feel it. Then he reached for his cuffs. Metal rang sharply as they came free from his belt. The sound cut through the parking lot louder than any voice. The woman did not resist. She turned slowly, deliberately, as if each movement were being logged somewhere invisible. As the cuffs closed around her wrists, someone in the crowd said out loud, "This doesn't feel right." What no one in that parking lot knew not yet was that the woman standing there in handcuffs had spent years on the other side of the bench, interpreting the law, enforcing the Constitution, writing opinions that decided the fate of officers just like this one. And in that moment, with her wrists bound behind her back, a routine stop crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The story pauses not because the tension has faded, but because understanding requires context. Her name was Judge Evelyn Carter, 52 years old, appointed to the federal district court 11 years earlier. But that title had been earned long before the robe ever touched her shoulders. Evelyn Carter did not grow up imagining parking lots and police lights. She grew up in a narrow brick house on the south side of Baltimore, where sirens were background noise and ambition felt like an act of rebellion. Her mother worked double shifts as a hospital registrar. Her father drove a city bus until his back gave out. Dinner conversations were about bills, schedules, and survival, not prestige. She learned early that excellence was not optional. It was armor. Top of her class in high school. Full scholarship to Howard University. Law school after that, graduating with honors while clerking nights and tutoring first-year students for rent money. She didn't network at wine bars. She studied case law until sunrise. Her career began in the public defender's office. Windowless rooms, overworked calendars, clients who had already given up by the time she met them. She learned how power moved when no one was watching, how easily rights were bent when no one knew their name. Later, as a civil rights attorney, she built a reputation that made police departments uneasy. She was meticulous, unemotional, dangerous in the way calm people often are. She did not shout in court. She dismantled arguments piece by piece with precedent and patience. She sued cities. She sued departments. She sued officers who assumed no one would challenge them. Some cases settled quietly. Others went to trial. In more than one officer's lost badges pensions careers. When she was nominated to the federal bench, the confirmation hearings were tense. Her record was clear. Too clear for some. She answered every question without blinking. She cited the Constitution without theatrics. She was confirmed anyway. On the bench, she was known for fairness that felt ruthless to those who expected leniency. She ruled against prosecutors who cut corners. She denied qualified immunity when the law demanded it. Her opinions were quoted in other circuits. Her name appeared in legal journals. She did not seek attention. Attention found her. She had sentenced officers for misconduct. She had ordered departments to reform practices. She had written decisions that still circulated in police training seminars as warnings. And now she stood in the parking lot with handcuffs biting into her wrists. The man who put them there was Officer Daniel Mercer, 36 years old, 9 years on the force, a record that looked clean at first glance. Commendations for proactive policing, above-average arrest numbers, reliable, assertive. Dig deeper and a different picture emerged. Mercer grew up believing authority was something you claimed, not something you earned. His father had been a corrections officer. Dinner table stories were about control, about respect, about not letting anyone challenge you. On the force, Mercer learned which complaints mattered and which didn't. He had been accused before. Improper stops, disrespectful conduct, nothing that stuck long enough to derail his progress. Body camera footage that started late, witnesses who didn't file formal statements, supervisors who wrote notes about attitude but praised productivity. He developed habits, certain neighborhoods, certain faces, certain assumptions that felt justified because they were never punished. That afternoon, the call was vague. Suspicious person, expensive vehicle, no reported theft, no description of criminal behavior. Just a feeling passed from a dispatcher who passed it from someone else. Mercer arrived already convinced he knew what he was walking into. When he saw Evelyn Carter at the car, his mind closed around a conclusion and refused to reopen. The key fob, the calm, the questions. To him, those were challenges, not explanations. Backing down was not an option once eyes were on him. Once phones came out. Once the crowd began to form. He did not know who she was. He did not ask in a way that allowed the truth to matter. He had learned long ago that confidence often overpowered correctness. In that parking lot, two histories collided. One built on restraint and accountability, the other built on unchecked certainty. Evelyn Carter had spent decades navigating power without abusing it. Daniel Mercer had spent years enforcing power without being questioned. Neither of them knew yet how expensive this moment would become, but the law was already moving even as the handcuffs closed. The parking lot did not return to normal after the handcuffs clicked shut. It leaned in. Officer Mercer guided Evelyn Carter a few steps away from the car. Not rough, not gentle, firm enough to signal control. The black sedan sat inches away, engine still warm, hazard lights blinking in slow, accusing pulses. "I need your identification," Mercer said. "It's in my purse," she replied. "Front seat, brown leather." He hesitated, then nodded toward the vehicle with his chin. "Don't move unless I tell you to." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. As Mercer retrieved the purse, the crowd grew thicker. A man in a delivery uniform stopped pushing his dolly. Two women stood shoulder to shoulder whispering. At least 3 phones were now clearly raised, red recording lights visible even in daylight. "You can't do that," someone said. "She didn't do anything." Mercer ignored them. He always did. Crowds talked. Paperwork decided. He returned and opened the purse, roughly rifling through it with one hand while keeping the other near his radio. Wallet, phone, keys. He pulled out a driver's license and glanced at it. "Evelyn Carter," he read aloud. Address matched the vehicle registration displayed on his in-car terminal. "This your car?" he asked again. "Yes," she said. "As I told you before." He looked at the license longer than necessary, then back at her. "What do you do for a living?" "I am a federal judge," she replied. The words landed quietly, too quietly. A ripple moved through the crowd. Someone laughed once, nervously, thinking it was sarcasm. Mercer's face didn't change. "Sure you are," he said. She didn't correct his tone. She added information instead. "United States District Court, Eastern Circuit." Mercer stared at her for a moment, then shook his head slightly. "Anyone can say anything. I'm verifying." "You're welcome to," she said. "I encourage it." He turned away, radio pressed to his shoulder. "Dispatch, run a full check. License is clean, no priors." The response crackled back within seconds. "Clean record, registered owner confirmed." That should have been the end. It wasn't. Mercer paced once. The crowd was louder now, not shouting, murmuring. Disbelief carried on breath and asphalt heat. "Why is she in cuffs?" a woman asked. She unlocked the car. "You can't arrest people for that," another voice said. Mercer turned sharply toward them. "Step back. This is an active investigation." Investigation into what someone challenged. Mercer didn't answer. He returned his attention to Evelyn. "If you're really a judge," he said, "you'll understand procedure." "I understand the Constitution," she replied. "And you are violating it." The crowd reacted to that. Phones lifted higher. Someone zoomed in. Mercer felt it slipping. Control wasn't just physical. It was narrative. And the narrative was turning. He made a decision. "You're being detained for obstruction," he said. There was a beat, just one. Obstruction of what she asked. Mercer didn't explain. He stepped closer, adjusting the cuffs unnecessarily. The metal scraped skin. Several people protested at once. A man shouted, "This is wrong." A woman said, "You're going to regret this." Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. Not in fear, in calculation. "Officer," she said evenly, "you have now escalated this situation without legal cause in front of multiple witnesses on recorded video. I advise you to stop." Mercer looked around again. Too many eyes, too many phones. But stopping now would mean admitting he was wrong. And that was something he had never been trained to do. Sirens approached in the distance. Backup or consequence, it wasn't clear yet. But everyone in that parking lot understood one thing. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was becoming a case. The moment stretched as if the air itself had thickened. Officer Mercer tightened his grip on Evelyn Carter's arm and guided her toward the patrol car. Each step echoed too loudly against the concrete. The sun reflected off windshields, flashing in sharp bursts that felt like camera shutters. The handcuffs pressed deeper with every movement. Cold metal, no give. Evelyn registered the sensation the way she had trained herself to register facts. Pressure. Restriction. Evidence. "You don't need to do this," someone in the crowd said. "She showed you everything." Mercer did not look at them. He opened the rear door of the patrol car. Plastic interior. Faint smell of disinfectant and old coffee. He positioned her carefully, deliberately, as if rehearsed. "Watch your head," he said. She lowered herself into the seat without resistance. The door closed with a hollow thud that silenced the crowd for half a second before the murmurs returned louder, now angrier. A woman's voice cut through. "This is abuse of power." Another voice followed. "You're arresting the wrong person." Mercer walked around to the driver's side. His movements were faster now, less controlled. He slid into the seat and shut the door. For a brief moment, the car was sealed off from the world. Just breathing. Just the ticking of the engine, cooling. Evelyn stared straight ahead through the metal mesh. Her reflection stared back faintly in the glass. Calm face. Straight posture. No tears. No shaking hands. Oh. She had been detained before years ago while representing a client during a protest. She remembered the feeling. Not fear, disappointment. The clarity that comes when the law is being broken deliberately. Mercer started the engine. The radio crackled, but he turned the volume down. The car pulled out of the parking space slowly, deliberately, as if nothing unusual had happened. Outside phones followed the movement. The crowd parted. Someone shouted, "We got this on video." The patrol car exited the lot and merged into traffic. Inside, silence took over. Mercer drove with both hands tight on the wheel. His jaw worked slightly. He didn't look back. He didn't speak. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment, not to escape, but to organize. Timeline, location, statements made, witness count, cameras visible. Everything was already assembling itself in her mind with the same precision she used in court. She opened her eyes again. "Officer," she said quietly, "you are making a serious mistake." Mercer's shoulders stiffened. He said nothing. "You have detained and arrested me without probable cause," she continued. "You ignored clear evidence. You escalated after verification. This will not end well for you or your department." He exhaled sharply through his nose. "You can explain all that downtown." They drove the rest of the way without another word. At the station, the routine unfolded with mechanical indifference. Doors opened. Doors closed. Shoes echoed down a hallway that smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. Officers glanced up, then back down, seeing only what they expected to see. Processing began. Belongings placed in plastic trays. Phone, wallet, keys. When the clerk opened the wallet, her hand paused. She pulled out a second identification card. Thicker, heavier. Gold seal catching the fluorescent light. She looked at it once, then again. Her eyes lifted slowly to Evelyn's face. The room shifted. The clerk stood up without speaking and walked briskly toward an office at the end of the hall, the card still in her hand. Evelyn remained seated, cuffs still on, back straight. Somewhere down the corridor, a door closed harder than necessary. For the first time since the parking lot, something like uncertainty crept into the air, and it was only just beginning. The clerk did not return to her desk. She moved with purpose down the corridor, shoes striking the tile faster than protocol required. The card in her hand felt heavier than plastic should. She knocked once, then entered the watch commander's office without waiting for permission. Lieutenant Marcus Hale looked up from his screen, already irritated by the interruption. "What is it?" The clerk placed the card on his desk without a word. Hale picked it up. Read it once, then again, slower. His jaw tightened, not with anger, but with recognition. He stood up immediately. "Where is she?" he asked. Processing, the clerk replied, still cuffed. Hale did not sit back down. He reached for the phone on his desk and dialed a number from memory. The conversation was brief, quiet, controlled. When he hung up, the room felt smaller. "Bring her here," he said, now. In the processing area, the casual rhythm had shifted. Officers glanced at one another. The hum of conversation faded. Evelyn Carter sat exactly where she had been left, hands still bound, eyes forward. An officer approached her. "Judge Carter," he said carefully. "This way, please." The word judge moved through the room like a current. Someone dropped a pen. Another officer froze mid-step. Evelyn stood when instructed. The cuffs were removed without comment. She followed them down the hall, past faces that now looked at her differently. No suspicion, no authority, only calculation. Inside the office, Hale stood behind his desk. He did not offer a seat. "Judge Carter," he said, "I'm Lieutenant Hale. I want to apologize for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience," she repeated softly. Hale cleared his throat. "There appears to have been a misunderstanding regarding your detention." "There was no misunderstanding," she replied. "There was an unlawful arrest." Silence settled between them. Hale nodded once. "I understand you're upset." "I am not upset," she said. "I am documenting." He swallowed. "Officer Mercer is being interviewed as we speak. Your identity has been verified through the Federal Registry." As if it had not been obvious before she said. Hale did not argue. He shifted tactics. "We will be releasing you immediately." "Release does not resolve constitutional violations," she replied. "Nor does it undo what has already occurred." Hale gestured toward the door. "We will provide you with copies of all reports, body camera footage, dispatch logs." "Tonight," she said. He hesitated, then nodded. "Tonight." Outside the office, Mercer stood, rigid eyes fixed on the floor. He did not look at her. He did not need to. His posture told the story his mouth could not. Evelyn stopped in front of him. "Officer Mercer," she said, "you had multiple opportunities to correct your actions. You chose not to. The consequences of that choice are now yours." Mercer said nothing. She walked past him without another glance. At 7:02 p.m., Evelyn Carter exited the station. The air outside felt different. Cooler. Sharper. Her phone vibrated continuously with missed calls she had not yet checked. A car waited to take her home. As she stepped inside, a single thought settled with certainty. This was no longer about her. This was about precedent. By Monday morning, the story had escaped the parking lot and the police station. It moved through text messages first. Grainy clips forwarded with no context. A woman in handcuffs. A black sedan. A calm voice asking questions that were never answered. By noon, the full video was everywhere. The headline settled into place quickly. Federal judge wrongfully arrested while unlocking her own car. The numbers climbed faster than the department could react. 1 million views in 12 hours. 3 million by nightfall. Comment sections filled with anger, familiarity, recognition. People did not argue about what they saw. They recognized it. Evelyn Carter did not speak publicly that week. She didn't need to. Her attorneys filed the lawsuit 48 hours later. 41 pages. Every paragraph precise. Unlawful detention. False arrest. Violation of Fourth Amendment rights. Equal protection violations. Failure to train. Failure to supervise. Attached were exhibits. Time-stamped videos from 4 angles. Body camera footage. Dispatch audio. Witness affidavits. Screenshots of the officer's own report contradicting the footage in subtle but fatal ways. The city attorney's office requested an emergency meeting. They watched the videos in silence. They did not fast forward. When it ended, no one spoke for several seconds. "We can't defend this," someone finally said. Internal Affairs began their investigation the same day. Officer Mercer was placed on administrative leave before the ink dried on the memo. His patrol car was reassigned. His badge logged. His name removed from the duty roster. They reviewed his history. Complaints that had once seemed isolated now formed a pattern when laid side by side. Stops without cause. Escalations without justification. Language flagged but never punished. Supervisors were interviewed. Training records pulled. Body camera compliance examined. Each answer created 2 more questions. Outside the department, pressure mounted. Civil rights organizations demanded accountability. Legal scholars dissected the arrest frame by frame on national television. Former prosecutors called it textbook misconduct. The mayor issued a statement, carefully worded, regretful, non-committal. Then the settlement talks began. The city wanted quiet. Evelyn Carter wanted change. The final agreement came 3 months later. The city agreed to a 7-figure settlement. Mandatory policy revisions. Independent oversight review. Expanded training on constitutional stops and implicit bias. Officer Mercer was terminated for cause. No severance, no pension. The termination letter cited multiple violations of department policy and constitutional law. His appeal was denied. He never worked in law enforcement again. The department announced reforms at a press conference that felt rehearsed. New protocols, new language, promises of accountability. But the real consequence had already landed. That video became required viewing at the police academy, not as punishment, as warning. One afternoon, one parking lot, one decision not to listen. Evelyn Carter returned to the bench without ceremony. Her docket was full, her rulings unchanged. But in courtrooms across the district, officers sat straighter when her name appeared at the top of an opinion. Because they understood now. Some mistakes do not end when the handcuffs come off. They end careers. What happened in that parking lot was not complicated. It only felt that way because authority was misused. Under the 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution, a police officer may not detain a person without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Reasonable suspicion is not a feeling. It is not discomfort. It is not someone looking out of place near something expensive. It must be based on specific, articulable facts. Unlocking a car with a key is not a crime. Standing next to a vehicle in a public parking lot is not a crime. Asking an officer to explain the legal basis for a stop is not obstruction. The Supreme Court has made that clear repeatedly. The moment Officer Mercer continued the detention after verifying ownership, the stop became unlawful. The moment he escalated because he felt challenged, it became a civil rights violation. The handcuffs were not the first mistake. They were the last link in a chain of choices. This case also exposes how bias operates in real time. Bias does not announce itself. It hides behind words like suspicious non-compliant attitude. It interprets calm as defiance and questions as threats. Once bias sets a narrative, evidence becomes invisible. That is why video matters. Cameras do not argue. They do not escalate. They do not forget. They preserve truth when memory and reports fail. For viewers, the lesson is practical, not theoretical. If you are stopped, keep your hands visible. Speak clearly. Ask questions calmly. If you are able, record. If others are present, ask them to record. Do not resist physically. Resistance is often redefined after the fact. If you witness a situation like this, do not interfere physically. Document. State facts out loud. Your voice and your camera may become evidence later. Most importantly, understand this. Justice should not depend on your title, your education, or your resources. The law exists to protect everyone equally, not selectively. Judge Evelyn Carter did everything right, and it still happened. That is why this story matters. Not because she was a federal judge, but because thousands of people who are not judges face the same assumptions every day without cameras, without lawyers, without leverage. Accountability did not happen because the system is perfect. It happened because the violation was undeniable. The question now is not what went wrong. The question is how many times it happens when no one is watching.